Part 1. The uninvited guest, Dr. Marcus Chen, pressed his face against the small window of the diplomatic shuttle. His breath made fog on the glass as he stared at the planet below. Zephyria looked like a giant jewel floating in space. Crystal towers reached toward the stars, glowing with soft blue light. Rivers of liquid silver flowed between the cities. "Amazing," Marcus whispered. Captain Rodriguez sat beside him, looking nervous. "Remember, Chen, you're here as a scientist, not a tourist. Don't touch anything. Don't ask too many questions. And for God's sake, don't embarrass humanity on our first contact with the Zephyrian Empire." Marcus nodded, but his eyes stayed glued to the window. After 20 years of studying alien life forms in labs, he was finally going to meet real aliens. Living, breathing, intelligent aliens. The shuttle landed with a soft thump in what looked like a crystal garden. Marcus stepped out and immediately felt different. The air was thinner here, and it tasted like electricity. Everything around him sparkled and hummed with energy. "Stay close," Captain Rodriguez warned. "They're coming." The Zephyrians approached, in perfect formation. Marcus had seen pictures, but seeing them in person made his heart race. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Each alien stood 7 feet tall on 4 legs, with 2 arms that ended in delicate multi-fingered hands. Their bodies were covered in smooth, dark chitin that reflected the crystal light. Most striking were their eyes. Large, compound eyes. That seemed to see everything at once. The lead Zephyrian stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes mixed with clicking sounds. "Welcome, mammals of Earth. I am Diplomatic Minister Veltar. You will follow the proper protocols." Captain Rodriguez bowed exactly as they had practiced. "We are honored to be here, Minister Veltar. We bring greetings from Earth." Minister Veltar's antennae twitched. Marcus wasn't sure, but it looked like annoyance. "Yes, come. King Vorthnal waits." They walked through the crystal city. Marcus tried not to stare, but everything was incredible. Buildings grew from the ground like living things. Zephyrians moved through the streets in organized groups, never bumping into each other. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance. "They don't seem very friendly," Marcus whispered to Captain Rodriguez. "Quiet," the captain hissed back. "They can probably understand us." They were right. Several Zephyrians turned their compound eyes toward Marcus. He heard soft clicking, sounds that he realized was their language. Whatever they were saying, it didn't sound welcoming. The Royal Hive was the most beautiful building Marcus had ever seen. It spiraled up toward the sky like a massive seashell made of crystal. Inside, the walls pulsed with gentle light. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed near the top. "Incredible engineering," Marcus said without thinking. Minister Veltar stopped walking. His antennae pointed directly at Marcus. "You question our construction abilities?" No, I meant it was amazing, beautiful. Like nothing humans could build." Marcus felt sweat on his forehead. This wasn't going well already. The minister's eyes studied Marcus for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like breaking glass. The throne room was enormous. Hundreds of Zephyrians stood in perfect rows, all facing a raised platform where King Vorthnal sat. The king was larger than the others, his chitin darker and more ornate. Golden patterns decorated his arms and head. When he moved, light danced across his body. "Approach," the king commanded. His voice echoed through the chamber. Captain Rodriguez led the human delegation forward. Marcus tried to walk properly, but he felt clumsy compared to the graceful Zephyrians around him. Every step seemed too loud. "Your Majesty," Captain Rodriguez began the speech they had practiced. "Earth sends its greetings and hopes for peaceful relations between our species." King Vorthnal's antennae barely moved. Mammals, you are young. Your species crawled from mud while mine built cities among the stars. Why should we treat you as equals? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus saw Captain Rodriguez's jaw tighten. This wasn't how the diplomats had expected the meeting to go. We offer friendship, Captain Rodriguez said carefully, and knowledge. Humans have learned much about science and culture. A sound rippled through the crowd of Zephyrians. It sounded like chittering laughter. Marcus realized they were being mocked. Friendship, King Vorthnal repeated. What could mammals teach the Zephyrian Empire? That's when Marcus noticed something was wrong. A sweet smell filled the air, and the crystal walls started changing color from blue to yellow. The Zephyrians didn't seem to notice, but Marcus's training kicked in. That smell meant trouble. Your Majesty, Marcus stepped forward, ignoring Captain Rodriguez's shocked look. I think we have a problem. You dare speak without permission? Minister Veltar's voice cracked like a whip. The environmental systems, Marcus said quickly. Something's releasing toxins into the air. Can't you smell it? King Vorthnal's compound eyes focused on Marcus. Explain. The sweet smell. That's probably ethylene glycol or something similar. And look at the wall crystals. They're changing color because they're reacting to chemical changes in the air. Marcus's mind raced. This isn't supposed to happen, is it? Suddenly, alarms began wailing throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed, and Zephyrian voices clicked rapidly in panic. King Vorthnal rose from his throne, his antennae quivering. Ancient security protocol activated, a mechanical voice announced in both Zephyrian and English. Toxic gas release in 60 seconds. All personnel evacuate immediately. Chaos erupted. Zephyrians ran toward the exits, but there were too many of them. The doorways became clogged with panicking aliens. Marcus saw King Vorthnal trying to reach a control panel, but the crowd pushed him back. The ventilation system, Marcus shouted over the noise. Where are the air intake valves? There, a female Zephyrian pointed to crystal panels high on. The walls. But the controls are locked. Marcus looked around desperately. Then he saw it, a maintenance shaft near the ceiling. Without thinking, he ran toward the wall and started climbing. The crystal surface was smooth, but tiny ledges and decorative patterns gave him handholds. 30 seconds until gas release, the voice announced. Marcus reached the shaft and crawled inside. His hands shook as he found the emergency override. Panel. The Zephyrian symbols meant nothing to him, but the basic principles of life support were universal. He started pulling circuit crystals randomly. 15 seconds. Marcus! Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed from below. Get out of there! Marcus found what looked like a main power coupling. He yanked it free just as the gas release timer hit. 0. The alarm stopped. The crystal wall colors slowly returned to blue. Marcus crawled backward out of the shaft and dropped to the floor. His hands were cut from the sharp crystals and his uniform was torn. The throne room was completely silent. Hundreds of compound eyes stared at him. King Vorthnal stepped forward, his expression unreadable. You saved us, the king said slowly. Marcus wiped blood from his hands. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, a soft voice said from behind the king. Not anyone. A female Zephyrian emerged from the crowd. She was smaller than the others, with silver patterns decorating her chitin. When she looked at Marcus, her compound eyes seemed to sparkle with curiosity. This is Princess Zalthara, my youngest daughter, King Vorthnal said. She speaks truth. A Zephyrian would have followed proper evacuation protocols. We would have died with dignity. Princess Zalthara stepped closer to Marcus. But humans think differently. Don't they, Dr. Chen? Marcus blinked in surprise. You know my name? I study your species, she said. Though I admit, seeing human behavior in person is quite different from reading reports. The tension in the room began to ease. Minister Veltar approached Marcus with something that might have been respect in his compound eyes. "Dr. Chen has earned guest rights in the royal hive," King Vorthnal declared. "You will stay as our honored guest while the diplomatic talks continue." As the crowd began to disperse, Marcus noticed several Zephyrian nobles whispering in their clicking language near the exits. He had been studying Zephyrian linguistics during the journey, and he caught one phrase clearly: eliminate the mammal. His blood ran cold. Apparently, not all Zephyrians were grateful for his help. Princess Zalthara noticed his expression. "Is something wrong, Dr. Chen?" Marcus forced a smile. "Just tired from the excitement, Your Highness." But as guards escorted him to his quarters, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that saving the royal court might have just made him some very dangerous enemies. Part 2. Hearts. Across the void, Marcus spent his first 3 days in the royal hive trying to understand Zephyrian culture. His guest quarters were beautiful but strange. The walls were alive, growing and changing color based on his mood. When he felt curious, they glowed soft blue. When he was nervous, they turned yellow. It was like living inside a mood ring. Captain Rodriguez visited him every morning to discuss the diplomatic talks. The meetings weren't going well. "They barely listened to us," the captain complained, pacing around Marcus's living crystal furniture. "King Vorthnal sits there like a statue. The other nobles just click at each other in their language. I don't think they take us seriously." Marcus nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept thinking about Princess Zalthara's words. "I study your species." What had she learned? And why did she seem so different from the other Zephyrians? His answer came on the 4th night. Marcus was reading in his quarters when he heard a soft tapping at his door. He opened it to find Princess Zalthara standing in the hallway. She wore a simple silver cloak that covered most of her chitin. In the dim light, her compound eyes looked almost human. "Dr. Chen," she said quietly, "may I enter? I wish to discuss diplomatic matters." Marcus stepped aside. "Of course, Your Highness. Please come in." She walked into his quarters and looked around with obvious curiosity. "These living walls are interesting. They show your emotions, yes? Most Zephyrians find this disturbing. We prefer to keep our feelings hidden." "But not you?" Marcus asked. Princess Zalthara's antennae twitched. Marcus was learning this meant amusement. "I find honesty refreshing. Tell me, Dr. Chen, what do you think of my people?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "You're incredible. Your technology, your cities, your organization, it's all amazing. But, she encouraged, everyone seems so formal, like you're all following a script. Don't you ever want to just be yourselves?" The princess was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked Marcus. She removed her cloak. Without it, he could see the intricate silver patterns that decorated her dark chitin. They were beautiful, like living art. "These patterns," she said, touching her arm gently, "they show my true thoughts and feelings. In Zephyrian society, we cover them. Emotions are considered primitive." "That's ridiculous," Marcus said without thinking. "Emotions are what make life worth living." "Is that what humans believe?" Marcus sat down on his strange, cushiony furniture. "We believe lots of things. That's the point. Every human is different. We argue, we create, we love, we dream. Sometimes we make mistakes, but at least we're really living." Princess Zalthara moved closer. "Tell me about human dreams." For the next 2 hours, Marcus told her about Earth. He described music that made people cry, art that captured impossible beauty, and stories that inspired entire generations. He talked about human love, not just romantic love, but the love between friends, families, and even strangers who helped each other. Princess Zalthara listened with growing wonder. "We have nothing like this," she said finally. "Zephyrians are born into castes. We follow the same patterns our ancestors followed for thousands of years. Individual desires are discouraged." "But what do you want?" Marcus asked. "If you could do anything, be anything, what would you choose?" The princess's silver patterns began to glow softly. "I want to see the stars," she whispered. "Not as a ruler or a diplomat, but as myself. I want to explore strange worlds and meet different species. I want to learn their songs and hear their stories. Then why don't you?" "Because I am Princess Zalthara, daughter of King Vorthnal. My life is not my own." Marcus felt his heart break a little. He recognized the loneliness in her voice, the same loneliness he'd felt as the only human among aliens. "Maybe it could be," he said gently. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Marcus felt the living walls around them pulse with warm, golden light. "I should go," Princess Zalthara said, but she didn't move. "Stay," Marcus said. "Please, tell me about Zephyrian poetry." "How did you know we have poetry?" "Every intelligent species creates art. It's one of the universal truths." Princess Zalthara's patterns brightened. "We do have poetry, but it's forbidden except for special ceremonies. Would you like to hear some?" "Very much." What followed was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. Princess Zalthara's voice rose and fell in complex harmonies, mixing clicks, chimes, and musical tones. Even though he couldn't understand the words, the emotion was clear. Longing, sadness, and hope all woven together. When she finished, Marcus had tears in his eyes. "That was incredible. What was it about?" "A young Zephyrian who dreams of flying beyond the crystal cities to touch the void between stars." "It's about you," Marcus realized. "Yes." They talked until dawn, sharing stories and dreams across the vast gap between species. Marcus learned that Princess Zalthara had always felt different from other Zephyrians. She questioned traditions, wondered about life beyond their rigid society, and secretly envied the freedom of space-traveling species. "I've been watching your diplomatic mission," she admitted, as the first light of Zephiria's sun streamed through the crystal windows. "The way humans work together, even when you disagree, the way you adapt to new situations. It's remarkable." "We're not perfect," Marcus said. "We make lots of mistakes. But you learn from them. Zephyrians fear mistakes. We prefer the safety of tradition." As she prepared to leave, Princess Zalthara paused at the door. "Dr. Chen, Marcus, may I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you have someone special on Earth? A mate?" Marcus shook his head. "No. I've always been too busy with my research. I never found anyone who understood my passion for discovering new life." "Perhaps," she said softly, "you were looking in the wrong species." After she left, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about her words, her poetry, and the way her silver patterns had glowed when she talked about her dreams. He was falling for an alien princess, and he had no idea what to do about it. Over the next week, Princess Zalthara visited him every night. They talked about everything: science, philosophy, art, and the nature of consciousness itself. Marcus shared human music through his portable player, and she taught him basic Zephyrian language. Slowly, carefully, they fell in love. But they weren't alone in the royal hive. General Krextar, the head of Zephyrian security, had been watching Marcus since the day he arrived. The general belonged to the old guard, Zephyrians who believed their species was superior to all others. He saw Marcus as a threat to their pure bloodlines and ancient traditions. "The mammal corrupts our princess," General Krextar told his loyal officers in a secret meeting. "She spends her nights with the alien, learning his primitive ways. This cannot continue. What would you have us do, General? Asked Commander Yixtal. We remove the threat. Quietly. Make it look like an accident. The other mammals will leave, and our princess will return to proper behavior. But King Vorthanal has granted him guest rights. General Krextar's compound eyes glowed with cold anger. Kings have been wrong before. The purity of our empire is more important than one alien's life. The plan was simple. During the next ceremonial feast, Marcus would drink wine poisoned with a chemical that mimicked heart failure in mammals. The humans would think he died from the stress of being on an alien world. Princess Zalthara would mourn briefly and then marry a proper Zephyrian noble. But General Krextar made one crucial mistake. He underestimated the growing love between a lonely human scientist and an alien princess who dreamed of touching the stars. On the night before the feast, Princess Zalthara came to Marcus's quarters with tears in her compound eyes. Her silver patterns pulsed with distress. "Something's wrong," she said, pacing nervously around his room. "The palace servants are acting strange. They whisper and stop talking when I approach. Even my personal guards seem tense." Marcus put his hands on her shoulders, feeling the smooth warmth of her chitin. "What do you think it means?" "I think someone knows about our meetings. I think you're in danger." Before Marcus could respond, they heard sounds in the hallway. Heavy footsteps and the click of weapons being readied. Princess Zalthara's eyes went wide with fear. "The ceremonial guards," she whispered. "They're coming for you." The footsteps stopped outside Marcus's door. A voice called out in Zephyrian, commanding and cold. "Dr. Chen," Princess Zalthara said urgently. "Tomorrow at the feast, don't drink." "Anything. Don't eat anything. Trust no one except me." "What's happening?" "I don't know, but I won't let them hurt you. I promise." The door chimed with an official summons. General Krextar's voice echoed through the crystal walls. "Dr. Marcus? Chen, by order of the Royal Security Council, you will appear at tomorrow's ceremonial feast. Your attendance is mandatory." Princess Zalthara squeezed Marcus's hands. "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember, some bonds are stronger than fear, stronger than tradition, and stronger than those who would keep hearts apart." As she slipped away into the shadows, Marcus realized their secret meetings were secret no more. Tomorrow would bring either triumph or tragedy, and he had no idea which. Part 3. The Trial of Hearts. The ceremonial feast took place in the Grand Hall, a massive crystal dome that could hold thousands of Zephyrians. Marcus entered wearing his best diplomatic uniform, but he felt like he was walking to his execution. Hundreds of compound eyes tracked his movement as he was escorted to a seat near the royal table. King Vorthanal sat on his crystal throne, looking more serious than usual. Princess Zalthara was beside him, wearing formal robes that covered her, silver patterns completely. She didn't look at Marcus, but he saw her hands trembling slightly. General Krextar stood at attention near the king's throne. His dark chitin gleamed with military decorations, and his compound eyes never left Marcus. The general's antennae pointed forward, in what Marcus had learned was an aggressive posture. "Honored guests," King Vorthanal's voice echoed through the hall. "Tonight we celebrate the ancient traditions of our empire. We feast in the manner of our ancestors." Servants began bringing food and drink to the tables. Marcus remembered Princess Zalthara's warning and didn't touch anything. When a servant offered him wine, he politely declined. The servant insisted, but Marcus shook his head firmly. General Krextar noticed immediately. He whispered something to another officer who nodded and moved closer to Marcus's table. The feast continued with speeches and traditional Zephyrian music. Marcus tried to look relaxed, but his heart was racing. Every time someone approached his table, he tensed up. Every drink offered made him more suspicious. Then Princess Zalthara stood up. "Father," she said, her voice carrying across the hall, "I wish to make an announcement." King Vorthanal looked surprised. "Daughter, this is not the proper time for—" I wish to announce my intention to court Dr. Marcus Chen of Earth. The hall fell completely silent. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Princess Zalthara had just declared her feelings publicly in front of the entire Zephyrian court. General Krextar's antennae snapped upright. This is impossible. A princess of the royal bloodline cannot mate with a primitive mammal. I am not primitive, Marcus said, standing up. His voice was steady despite his racing heart. And neither are humans. Silence, General Krextar commanded. You have corrupted our princess with your alien ways. King Vorthnal raised his hand for quiet. The hall became still as death. Daughter, the king said slowly, do you understand what you are saying? Our bloodlines have remained pure for 10,000 years. Yes, father. And in those 10,000 years, have we grown? Have we learned? Have we become better than we were? Princess Zalthara's voice grew stronger. Dr. Chen saved our lives. When ancient protocols failed, he thinks in ways we cannot. Perhaps it is time for new blood in the royal line. Angry clicking sounds erupted from the noble tables. Several Zephyrian lords stood up, their chiton flashing with rage. This mammal has bewitched our princess, shouted Lord Vexmar. He must be eliminated. Agreed, called another noble. The purity of our empire is at stake. But other voices spoke up in support. He saved the royal court, said Minister Veltar. Perhaps the princess sees wisdom we do not. The old ways have not brought us happiness, added a younger noble. Maybe change is necessary. The hall erupted in argument. Zephyrians clicked and chattered at each other in their rapid language. Marcus caught fragments. Some called him hero, others called him destroyer. The crowd was splitting into two sides. King Vorthnal stood up, and the hall gradually became quiet again. This is unprecedented, he said. Never has a member of the royal family sought to mate outside our species. Then let him prove himself. General Krextar stepped forward. Let the mammal face the trial of worthiness. If he survives, perhaps he is worthy of our princess. If he dies, the general's compound eyes glittered with satisfaction. Marcus had heard of the trial of worthiness. It was an ancient test that noble Zephyrians underwent to prove their fitness to rule. No non-Zephyrian had ever attempted it. Most importantly, no one had survived it in over 300 years. Father, no! Princess Zalthara moved toward Marcus. The trial is meant to kill. It's impossible. King Vorthnal looked troubled. The trial is our oldest tradition. If Dr. Chen wishes to join the royal family, he must prove himself worthy by our laws. Marcus felt everyone staring at him. He could refuse and return to Earth safely. Princess Zalthara would be forced to marry a Zephyrian noble, and their love story would end. Or he could accept the trial and probably die trying to prove himself. He thought about Princess Zalthara's poetry, her dreams of touching the stars, and the way her silver patterns glowed when she talked about freedom. He thought about humanity's greatest strength, the willingness to try impossible things. I accept the trial, Marcus said clearly. Princess Zalthara gasped. General Krextar smiled coldly. King Vorthnal nodded slowly. So be it. Dr. Chen, you will face 3 challenges. First, the test of mind. You must navigate the quantum maze, which changes based on the observer's thoughts. Second, the test of body. You must survive 1 day and night in the crystal caverns using only basic tools. Third, the test of spirit. You must solve the great question that has puzzled our philosophers for centuries. And if I fail? Marcus asked. Then you die, General Krextar said with obvious pleasure. And the princess will understand that mammals are inferior to Zephyrians. The next morning, Marcus stood at the entrance to the quantum maze. It was a massive underground chamber filled with glowing walls that shifted and moved constantly. Princess Zalthara was allowed to see him off. "You don't have to do this," she whispered, touching his hand. "We can run away together, find a ship and explore the galaxy." Marcus squeezed her fingers gently. "If I run, they'll always say humans are cowards. I have to prove that we're worthy of respect and worthy of you." Her silver patterns glowed brightly under her ceremonial robes. "Then remember, think like a human, not like a Zephyrian. Your difference is your strength." The maze entrance sealed. Behind Marcus, with a sound like thunder, he was alone in a chamber that defied physics. Walls appeared and disappeared. Corridors led in impossible directions. When he thought about going left, new passages opened to the left. When he decided to go right, the left passages vanished. It took him 3 hours to understand the trick. The maze responded to direct thoughts, but it couldn't read subconscious desires. Marcus had to stop thinking about where he wanted to go and instead let his unconscious mind guide him. It was like walking while asleep, terrifying but effective. He found the exit by not looking for it. The second trial was more straightforward but equally deadly. The crystal caverns were filled with sharp formations that cut like knives, toxic, gases that burned the lungs, and temperatures that swung from freezing to boiling. Marcus was given only a knife, a rope, and a water bottle. He survived by using human adaptability. When the caverns got too hot, he found ice formations and used them to cool down. When toxic gases filled an area, he held his breath and moved quickly. When razor-sharp crystals blocked his path, he used his rope to swing over them. Zephyrians would have tried to fight the caverns directly, using strength and determination. Marcus survived by working with the environment instead of against it. But the third trial was the hardest. The great question had stumped Zephyrian philosophers for over 1,000 years. How can a society maintain order and tradition while still allowing individual growth and happiness? Marcus sat in the Hall of Contemplation, surrounded by the greatest Zephyrian thinkers. They waited for his answer, expecting him to fail like all the others. Marcus thought about Princess Xalthara's poetry, hidden under ceremonial robes. He thought about the young nobles who had supported him at the feast. He thought about human societies that had faced the same question. "The answer is simple," Marcus said finally. "You don't maintain the old order. You create a new one." The philosophers stirred uneasily. "Explain," demanded the eldest. "Tradition should serve the people, not the other way around. Keep the traditions that make you strong and happy. Change the ones that cause suffering. A living society grows and adapts. A dead society just repeats the past." "But without unchanging order, there is chaos," protested another philosopher. "No," Marcus said. "Without growth, there is death. Humans have a saying, the only constant is change. You can have order and individual freedom if you're willing to build something new together." The philosophers argued among themselves for hours in rapid Zephyrian. Finally, the eldest stood up. "The mammal's answer is acceptable. He has passed the trial of worthiness." Marcus had done it. He had survived the impossible trials and proven himself worthy of Princess Zalthara. But as he walked back toward the royal hive, emergency. Alarms began wailing across the crystal city. Long-range sensors had detected something approaching Zephyria from deep space. A massive fleet of unknown ships was heading directly for their world. The ships were enormous, dark, and completely alien to both human and Zephyrian technology. General Krextar met Marcus at the palace entrance. For the first time, the general looked frightened instead of angry. "Mammal," he said urgently. "We may need your strange thinking after all. The Devourers have returned." Marcus felt his blood turn cold. He had read about the Devourers in ancient Zephyrian texts. An enemy, so terrible that entire civilizations had been erased from history. Part 4. When Worlds Collide. The war room in the royal hive buzzed with panic. Zephyrian military leaders clicked frantically at each other while holographic displays showed the approaching enemy fleet. The devourer ships looked like giant metal, insects with wings made of dark energy. There were hundreds of them, each one larger than the biggest Zephyrian warship. Marcus stood beside Princess Zalthara, watching the chaos. King Vorthnal sat on his throne, his compound eyes dim with worry. General Krextar paced back and forth, his military medals clinking against his chiton. "Our fleet is no match for them," Admiral Zixara reported. "The Devourers have weapons we don't understand. Our records show they destroyed entire star systems before they vanished." "How long since they were last seen?" Marcus asked. "General," Krextar glared at him, "why should we discuss military secrets with a mammal?" "Because," Princess Zalthara said firmly, "he just proved himself worthy of joining the royal family. And because human thinking saved us once before." King Vorthanel nodded slowly. "Answer his question, Admiral." 3,000 years ago, they Gasiul attacked the outer colonies. We managed to drive them away, but barely. They consumed everything, planets, moons, even the energy from our suns. Then they disappeared into dark space. What made them leave? Marcus studied the holographic enemy ships. They pulsed with organic-looking patterns like living creatures rather than machines. We're not sure," Admiral Zixara admitted. "Our ancestors' records are incomplete. We think they ran out of resources to consume." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "They're not just attacking you. They're feeding, like cosmic locusts." "Irrelevant," General Krextar snapped. "We must prepare our defenses, activate the planetary shields, ready all weapon platforms." "That won't work," Marcus said quietly. The room fell silent. All the Zephyrian compound eyes turned toward him. "Explain," King Vorthnal commanded. Marcus pointed at the holographic display. "Look at their formation. They're not arranged like a military fleet. They're arranged like a feeding swarm. See how the smaller ships form protective rings around the larger ones? The big ships are the feeders. The small ones are guards." "So?" General Krextar demanded. "So you can't fight them like a normal enemy. They don't want to conquer you. They want to eat you. Everything you've built, everything you are, it's just food to them." Princess Zalthara stepped closer to the display. "Then how do we stop them?" "We don't fight them," Marcus said. "We confuse them." Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began shrieking throughout the palace. The first wave of Devourer. Scouts had reached Zephiria's outer atmosphere. The Crystal City's defensive systems activated automatically. Energy shields flickered to life over the major population centers. Weapon platforms rose from hidden locations and began firing at the approaching scouts. The Zephirian weapons hit their targets, but the Devourer ships just absorbed the energy. They grew larger and brighter with each hit. "They're feeding on our weapons!" Admiral Zixara shouted in horror. The scout ships descended toward the crystal cities like hungry birds. Where they touched the planetary shields, the energy barriers began to dissolve. The Devourers were literally eating the defenses. "Shut down all weapons," Marcus yelled. "You're making them stronger." General Krextar hesitated, then gave the order. The weapon platforms went silent across the planet. The Devourer scouts slowed their descent, as if confused by the sudden lack of energy to consume. "That bought us maybe an hour," Marcus said grimly. "The main fleet will be here soon." "Captain." Rodriguez burst into the war room, followed by the other human diplomats. "Marcus, thank God you're alive. We've been monitoring the situation from our ship. The entire human fleet is en route, but they won't arrive for 6 hours. "How many ships?" King Vorthnal asked. 50 vessels, our best warships." General Krextar made a sound like bitter laughter. 50 mammal ships against hundreds of devourers? Pointless." "Maybe not," Marcus said thoughtfully. Captain, what's the tactical doctrine for the human fleet? Hit and run. Fast attacks, rapid repositioning. We learned it fighting the Centauri pirates. Never stay in one place long enough for the enemy to lock onto you. Marcus turned to Admiral Zixara. How do Zephyrian fleets normally fight? Organized formations, disciplined advances. We overwhelm the enemy with superior coordination and firepower. That's why you'll lose, Marcus said bluntly. The Devourers are a hive mind. They think like you do, organized, predictable. But humans are chaotic. We improvise, we make plans, and then throw them away when something better comes along. Princess Zalthara's silver patterns began to glow under her robes. You want to combine our fleets? More than that. I want to combine our thinking. Marcus moved to the holographic controls. May I? King Vorthnal nodded. Marcus began manipulating the display, showing ship positions and movement patterns. Here's what we do. The Zephyrian fleet forms up in traditional formation. Exactly what the Devourers expect. But the human ships stay hidden behind Zephiria's moons. When the Devourers attack the Zephyrian fleet, the humans hit them from unexpected angles. The Zephyrian fleet will be destroyed, General Krextar protested. Not if we time it right. The moment the Devourers commit to their attack pattern, the Zephyrian ships break formation and scatter, completely random movements. Meanwhile, the human ships attack the Devourer supply lines. Admiral Zixara studied the tactical display. It could work, but our pilots aren't trained for random movement. We follow strict protocols. Then we need someone to coordinate who thinks randomly, Marcus said. Someone who can make split-second decisions without following any plan. You, Princess Zalthara realized. Me and you, Marcus corrected. I understand human chaos. You understand Zephyrian order. Together, we can speak to both fleets. King Vorthnal stood up from his throne. Dr. Chen, I hereby grant you the rank of Fleet Coordinator. You will work with Admiral Zixara to defend our world. General Krextar's antennae pointed straight up in shock. Your Majesty, you cannot give military command to an alien. I can and I will. Dr. Chen has proven his worth. More importantly, he may be our only hope. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus and Princess Zalthara worked together in the command center, coordinating between the human and Zephyrian fleets. She translated his chaotic human strategies into terms the Zephyrian admirals could understand. He helped human captains work with alien technology they'd never seen before. Fleet positions confirmed, Captain Rodriguez reported from his ship. All human vessels are hidden behind the lunar satellites. Zephyrian fleet ready for engagement, Admiral Zixara added. Though I still think this plan is insane. Good, Marcus said. Insane is exactly what we need. On the holographic display, the main Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace. The enemy ships were even more terrifying up close. Massive biomechanical constructs that pulsed with dark energy. The largest ship in the center was the size of a small moon. My God, Captain Rodriguez whispered over the comm. What is that thing? The Queen's ship, Princess Zalthara said, reading from ancient texts. The heart of the Devourer swarm. If it reaches the planet... She didn't need to finish. Everyone could see the energy tendrils extending from the Queen's ship towards Zephyria. Where they touched the atmosphere, the sky began to turn gray. The planet's life energy was being drained away. All ships, this is Fleet Coordinator Chen. Marcus spoke into the communication system. Execute Plan Chaos in 3, 2, 1. Now! The Zephyrian fleet, arranged in perfect military formation, suddenly scattered in all directions. Ships that had flown in disciplined formations for centuries began weaving, diving, and spinning in completely random patterns. The Devourer fleet, expecting an organized attack, hesitated for crucial seconds. That's when the human ships struck. 50 human vessels came screaming out from behind Zephiria's moons, firing everything they had at the Devourer supply ships. The enemy had been focused on the scattered Zephyrian fleet and didn't see the flanking attack until it was too late. "Direct hits on multiple targets," Captain Rodriguez reported, "but they're not taking much damage." "Keep moving," Marcus shouted. "Don't let them lock onto you." The battle became a three-dimensional dance of chaos. Human ships darted between devourer vessels like angry wasps, never staying in one place long enough to be caught. Zephyrian ships used their superior shields to ram devourer fighters, then spun away before the enemy could respond. For a moment, it looked like the plan might work. Then the Queen ship began to move. The massive vessel slowly turned toward the planet, ignoring the smaller ships attacking around it. Energy tendrils extended from its hull, reaching hungrily toward Zephiria's crystal cities. "It's not interested in the fleet," Marcus realized in horror. "It's going straight for the planet." On the surface, the crystal cities began to dim as their energy was drained away. Citizens fled through the streets as buildings started to collapse. The living walls in the royal hive turned gray and lifeless. "We have to stop that ship," Princess Zalthara said desperately. "How?" Admiral Zixara demanded. "It's too big. Our weapons just make it stronger." Marcus stared at the Queen ship on the holographic display. Its biomechanical hull pulsed with absorbed energy from every weapon that hit it. It was like trying to kill something by feeding it. Part 5. The Son-in-Law's Gambit. The shuttle shook violently as it approached the Queen ship. Up close, the massive vessel looked more like a living creature than a machine. Dark metal plates shifted and moved like breathing. Energy veins pulsed. Beneath the surface, carrying stolen life force from Zephyria back to the ship's core. There, Princess Zalthara pointed to a section where the hull plates were opening and closing rhythmically. "That looks like a docking port." Marcus piloted the shuttle toward the opening. "Or a mouth. I really hope it's a docking port." They slipped inside just as the hull plates began to close. The shuttle's lights revealed a tunnel lined with organic-looking walls that pulsed like a heartbeat. Strange symbols glowed along the surfaces, not written language, but something more primitive and hungry. "The air is breathable." Princess Zalthara checked her scanner. "But there's something else. Energy. Signatures everywhere. This ship is alive." They left the shuttle and began walking deeper into the Queen's ship. The floor felt spongy under their feet, and the walls were warm to the touch. Occasionally, they heard sounds, not mechanical noises, but something like breathing or digesting. "Stay close," Marcus whispered. "And remember, we're looking for some kind of control center, the brain of this thing." They followed the energy readings deeper into the ship. The corridors branched and twisted like blood vessels. Sometimes they had to climb over barriers that looked like ribs. Other times they crawled through tubes that contracted around them. "Marcus!" Princess Zalthara grabbed his arm. "Look!" Ahead of them, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. The walls were covered with thousands of glowing pods, each one containing what looked like a sleeping creature. But these weren't devourers. They were beings from dozens of different species. Humans, Zephyrians, and aliens Marcus had never seen before. "Prisoners?" Marcus wondered. "No," Princess Zalthara said sadly. "Food. They're keeping them alive to harvest their life energy slowly." They moved through the chamber carefully, trying not to wake the sleeping captives. Near the center, Marcus stopped in shock. One of the pods contained a human woman in a science officer's uniform. "Dr. Sarah Kim," he whispered. "She was on the research station that went missing 3 years ago." Princess Zalthara placed her hand on the pod. "Can we free them?" Marcus examined the life support systems. "Not without killing them. The pods are connected to their nervous systems. We'd have to shut down the whole ship to safely disconnect everyone." "Then that's what we do." They continued toward the ship's center, following the strongest energy readings. The corridors became stranger as they went deeper. The walls showed scenes from consumed worlds, cities being drained, forests turning gray, entire populations falling asleep as their life force was stolen. It's not just feeding, Marcus realized. It's learning, studying every species it consumes. Finally, they reached the heart of the Queen's ship. The central chamber was enormous, with a pulsing organic core suspended in the middle. Energy flowed through tubes connecting the core to every part of the ship. But what shocked Marcus most was the intelligence he could feel radiating from the core, ancient, vast, and desperately lonely. "Hello," a voice said inside their minds. Not heard, but felt directly in their consciousness. Princess Zalthara grabbed Marcus's hand. "Did you hear that?" "I felt it," Marcus replied. "Are you the Queen?" "I am everything, every mind consumed, every life absorbed. I carry the memories of 1,000,000 worlds." The mental voice was sad rather than threatening. "You are new. Fresh thoughts to add to the collection." "We're not here to be collected," Marcus said firmly. "We want you to stop destroying planets." "Stop?" The concept seemed to confuse the entity. "I cannot stop. It is my purpose, my programming. Find life, consume life, preserve life within myself. I am the ark that saves species from extinction." "By killing them?" Princess Zalthara asked. "By making them eternal. Death comes to all living things, but within me they live forever. I carry the essence of 10,000 civilizations." Marcus began to understand. "You're not evil. You're trying to save everyone by absorbing them." "Yes, you understand." The Queen's mental voice grew excited. "Each species I consume adds to the great library of life. Their knowledge, their dreams, their love, all preserved forever." "But they're not really alive," Princess Zalthara said gently. "They're just memories, shadows of what they used to be." "It is the only way to defeat death," the Queen insisted. "I have searched the galaxy for another method. There is none." Marcus felt his heart break for this ancient entity. For millions of years it had been trying to save life by destroying it, never realizing the contradiction. It was like a parent who locked their children in cages to keep them safe from the world. "There is another way," Marcus said quietly. "Impossible. I have absorbed the greatest minds in the galaxy. If there were another way, I would know it." "You've absorbed minds that think like you do, logically, systematically, but you've never absorbed human thinking. Humans are primitive mammals. What could you teach me?" Marcus smiled. "How to let go." He stepped closer to the pulsing core. "Every species you've absorbed was trying to live forever by avoiding death. But humans learned something different. We learned that the beauty of life comes from its temporary nature. We love deeper because we know love can end. We create art because we know we won't be here forever. We take risks because life is too short to play it safe. But without preservation, everything is lost when you die," the Queen protested. "No," Princess Zalthara stepped forward. "We live on in the children we raise, the friends we touch, the changes we make to the world. We live on in the love we share and the knowledge we pass down. That's real immortality, not preserving the body but continuing the spirit." The Queen was silent for a long moment. Marcus could feel its vast consciousness considering their words. "Show me," it said finally. "What?" "Show me this human way of living on. Prove that something can survive death without being consumed." Marcus looked at Princess Zalthara. Her silver patterns were glowing brightly, visible through her clothes. "Our love," he said. "We come from different species, different worlds. By all logic, we should be incompatible. But we fell in love anyway." "And our children," Princess Zalthara added. "They will be something new, part human, part Zephyrian, but completely themselves. They'll carry the best of both our peoples into the future. Our alliance, Marcus continued, humans and Zephyrians working together, making both species stronger. That's how life really continues, not by preserving the past, but by creating the future. The Queen's core pulsed faster. This is possible? To live on without consuming? More than possible, Marcus said. It's beautiful. Suddenly, the Queen ship shuddered. All around them, the energy tubes began to retract from the sleeping pods. On the walls, the stolen scenes of consumed worlds began to fade. I can release them, the Queen realized. All of them. Let them return to their lives while I learn this new way. We'll teach you, Princess Xalthera promised. Humans and Zephyrians together. We'll show you how to create instead of consume. The Queen ship began to change. The organic walls became cleaner, more open. The prison pods opened, and the sleeping captives began to wake up. Throughout the ship, the Devourer vessels stopped their attack on Zephyria and began to help evacuate the people they had captured. This will take time, the Queen warned. I have millions of years of programming to overcome. That's okay, Marcus said. Learning is a lifetime process. Good thing you have a very long lifetime. 6 months later, Marcus and Princess Xalthara stood on the observation deck of the first interspecies research station. Through the windows, they could see Devourer ships working alongside human and Zephyrian vessels to build something new, a center for learning and cooperation between species. Dr. Sarah Kim, rescued from the Queen ship, was now the station's chief scientist. Former Devourer entities worked as researchers, using their vast stored knowledge to help solve problems across the galaxy. The Queen herself had taken a smaller, more friendly form and spent her time learning about art, music, and the strange human concept of humor. Any regrets? Marcus asked, putting his arm around his wife's waist. Princess Xalthara, now Queen Xalthara after her father's peaceful retirement, smiled and touched her slightly rounded belly. Only that our child will grow up in a universe where impossible. Love stories are becoming common. That's a problem? Not a problem. A blessing. She leaned against him. Though I do worry about what we'll tell them when they ask how Mommy and Daddy met. Marcus laughed. We'll tell them the truth. Daddy came as a diplomatic guest, made some cultural mistakes, saved everyone from toxic gas, fell in love with an alien princess, survived impossible trials, helped win a space war, and convinced an ancient entity to change its entire worldview. And then Daddy became the luckiest son-in-law in the galaxy. Above them, ships from dozens of species worked together under the light of distant stars. In the research labs, beings who had once been enemies shared knowledge and dreams. In the nurseries, children of mixed heritage played games that would have been impossible just a year before. The Queen had been right about one thing. Love could be eternal, but not through consumption or preservation. Love lived on by growing